and welcome to the last talk on the theater stage for this Codegarden. On stage with me in a second here, we have Simon Bürger from Bluegrass Digital, Head of Engineering, and he'll be giving you a case study on e-commerce. Oh, no, sorry. Umbaco Commerce. Ah, whoops. Enjoy.
Whoops. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. This is Umbraco Commerce, not e-commerce. Yeah, thank you all for being here on the last day, the last session, pretty much, of Codegarden 2024. I know for some of you that's probably quite an achievement to get out of bed this morning and come here. So thank you for being here. Today we're going to talk a little bit about our first experience working with Umbraco Commerce since it was launched middle of last year. And I'm going to run you through some of our experiences on that project, some of the background to the project, the business problem, why we chose Umbraco Commerce, what challenges we faced along the way, and wrapping up with whether we'd recommend it to all of you here. So a little bit of background. We are Bluegrass Digital, a digital solutions company based primarily out of South Africa. We've been doing this a long time. 20 plus years, as long as there's been a web development industry to be in, we've been in it. And we've evolved a lot over the years. As you can see from this picture, my hairline has evolved a lot too. And what we do, there's a few things up on the screen there, but primarily what we do is solve our customers' problems. And one of those customers is the one we're going to be focusing on today. It's called Unpack, and those of you from the Netherlands might recognize the name. It's a group of companies based primarily out of the Netherlands that specialize in packaging and fulfillment and sort of related services. And they're a fairly big company, 140 employees in 12 countries, so multilingual, multinational. They process 400,000 orders a year for 32,000 customers. So do a lot of commerce, basically. So, their business problem, I don't know if you can see that very well on the screen. They have an existing system, existing CMS e-commerce platform that they built completely custom in 2015. And as you can imagine, those of you who've tried to build custom e-commerce platforms before, it hasn't gone that well. The business has grown, but it hasn't really scaled with the business. It's very rigid, very bespoke, and very complex. So what that has ended up resulting in is that instead of the marketing team managing the content and the products, the IT team has to manage the content and the products. And if you've ever worked with the marketing team, you'll know that that's not something that they enjoy having to negotiate. So yeah, very, very complex, very high cost of ownership. So they wanted a change. They wanted a new platform. So very much what we're going to be talking about today is this journey that we took them on from complexity to simplicity of the overall system and how we got there using Umbraco Commerce. So a little bit of background on some of the project requirements that the client had when we started. Firstly, because they have a lot of different companies, a lot of different designs, a lot of different themes, if you will. They wanted a consistent set of UI components, a consistent set of UI components that they could theme per brand, and they wanted to be able to easily use it in different applications, different platforms, some e-commerce, some not. So part of the requirement was that. Then they had obviously their e-commerce requirements, so it needed to be multiple stores, different brands, again. Multiple languages, they need to have offline payments, different payment integrations per country, per language, per region, different delivery integrations, again, per country. And then they had specific requirements around their products. So they had all these packaging products, and they needed to sell them in a very specific way, different price tiers. They need to be able to give out free samples. Very complex tax rates, as you can, if you've ever worked in different countries with e-commerce, the VAT rates per state are a complete nightmare. And they needed to have minimum order quantities, different pack sizes, quite a lot of complexity in the products themselves and how they actually wanted to sell them. So I'm going to do a little segue into the style guide first of all, before I move into the commerce stuff. So the way we approached this was, they obviously wanted to have this reusable set of components, and those of you who've worked with style guides before might recognize Storybook. We use Storybook for the sort of front-end UI demo of the components, the library of the components, rather. But the client had other quite specific requirements. Their internal dev team is a .NET dev team, and they wanted to also be able to reuse these components. So what we ended up doing, which was quite different to how we normally do style guides, was using Razor tag helpers and view components for a reusable component library, which was new for us. And it's actually worked very well. We have other companies that have used the standalone NuGet package. We've created a NuGet package of all the tag helpers and view components, and they've implemented in record time and gave us pretty glowing reviews on that. I'm going to do a little quick demo on that style guide. There we go. So you can see we have a bunch of controls here in the Storybook, and this actually mirrors what we've implemented in those tag helpers and view components and in the CMS. So this sort of serves as a, sorry, just struggling to control this with my mouse here. There we go. It has all these controls that they're aid in discoverability of these components and what they can do and how the implementers can work with them. So there's a whole bunch of controls, and you can toggle things on and off. So the client's very happy with this as part of their deliverable. And now I'm going to, there we go, move back into the presentation. So why do we choose Umbraco Commerce? So we were quite lucky on this particular project. The client was already sold, well, not completely sold, but they were already keen on Umbraco. Being a .NET house, they'd Googled open source .NET CMS and thankfully found Umbraco. And they found us through that because we're a gold partner. So we didn't have to sell them too much on Umbraco. The reasons we ended up choosing Umbraco Commerce is because, even so soon after launch, when we sort of kicked this project, it was already very seamlessly integrated with Umbraco. Umbraco Commerce started out as another platform called Vendor, so it was quite mature already in the ecosystem. It met all the multi-everything requirements, the multi-stores, multilingual, etc. You get a lot out of the box with Umbraco Commerce. Everything you need to build an e-commerce website is there. And, different payment integrations for the major payment providers. Our client is using Stripe in a couple of regions, so that always helps to sort of sell it as well. More integrations out the box. And because it's Umbraco, it's all extensible out the box. I like what Patrick said earlier about Umbraco being a blank canvas, and very much Umbraco Commerce is an extension of that. And this might not be relevant for everyone here, but those of you who've worked with a lot of marketing teams know that you're often battling against people wanting to use WordPress, and we've done some WooCommerce projects in the past, and while it's fairly powerful and flexible, it's also a nightmare. So there were some other architectural questions we had in this particular project, and these are just a subset of them. You'll probably answer hundreds of these through the initial phases and throughout the life of a project. So we went with Umbraco Cloud on this particular project, and this was actually quite an easy choice on this particular one. The client wanted control over their infrastructure, but only insofar as they wanted visibility and control over the costs and and site of the access control and deployments, but they didn't actually want to manage any infrastructure or maintain the platform. They wanted us to do that. So Umbraco Cloud was kind of a no-brainer in that regard, because it enables all of those things. Why not headless? E-commerce is actually a great opportunity to use headless, especially when it needs to scale quite a lot. The reasons we didn't go with headless in this case, one was it adds complexity, and the existing development team is a .NET development team, and going headless means you're adding all these complex front-end frameworks that you might have to now negotiate, and it increases the cost of ownership for the client if they ever want to manage any of this internally. Additionally, when we started, headless was very alpha. It had only just sort of come out, I think, in August last year. The headless APIs for commerce. Another question we had to answer was why multi-site? There's a feature in cloud, I don't know if you know it, called baselines, and it's something we've used in the past. It just didn't quite fit this scenario. It's more for kind of unrelated sites, and these were very much more related. But more than anything else, baselines increase cost, because multi-site's one instance and baselines are multiple cloud projects. We also started using Cloud CI/CD on this particular project. It was also very early on. The reason we adopted it so early is that we worked on a few cloud projects before this, and without CI/CD, you can't follow your development best practices. You can't do your pull requests, you can't do your static analysis, and it'll increase your potential for technical debt and your costs of development, and you'll decrease your quality. So some of the challenges we faced with commerce specifically. The attributes out the box are a little bit limited. Out the box, they're suited to very much vanilla e-commerce. Your t-shirts are small, medium, large. They're gray, blue, and pink. We had this client in particular, their products were a little bit more advanced from an attribute perspective. So what we ended up doing is extending them with images and descriptions, and we used a sort of central. We abstracted them into a central repository where then, we integrated that with the built-in attribute functionality. And another challenge that we faced was that while the variations creation in Umbraco Commerce is amazing, it's really, 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 really helpful when you're setting up your products, it didn't quite work, again, with the more complex attributes that we were dealing with. The client has hundreds of products, and all the sizes are different for each individual product. When you're creating variations, if you had all of those sizes, you would have one big long list, hundreds of sizes, no pagination, no search, just 4.33 inches by 7.09 inches. Can you imagine that in a big long list, 200 long? So we've solved that problem by breaking up the variations into different sort of sections per product and product type. So we got some AI helping us here. They had very complex pricing requirements, and we had to extend pretty much everything in Umbraco Commerce to support that. The pack sizing, the free sample logic, the minimum order sizes, the different price tiers. That was quite complicated. So you order 500, you get a cheaper rate than if you order 100. So the great thing about Umbraco Commerce is that at the end of the day, it is all just Umbraco. It's a blank canvas, and you're going to have to do some development because that's what you do in Umbraco. But everything is extensible, and everything you can use the platform to extend it in whatever way you need to, whether that's using built-in Umbraco features. I say it's all just Umbraco. There's also a whole bunch of things that you're going to need when you're building an Umbraco Commerce website. See that in the documentation there. There are calculators and different services and things that you can override and use documentation about order calculations and shipping providers and all of those amazing things that you're going to need when you're building an e-commerce website. They're all there for you. And everything, again, is extensible, and everything is Umbraco. They're using document types, property editors, etc. All the things you already know and love. I'm going to do a quick demo of some of the things we've just looked at now. Just bear in mind, this is the dev side. I didn't want to use our pre-production environment. The client is actively loading content, and I didn't want this to break in the middle of my demo. So this is the product. Oh, not letting me scroll. It's a product detail page. You can see the price tiering that we talked about here. Different variants. You can see the prices changing as we change variants, all the different formats that we set up. Sorry, just jumping around with my mouse. The different pack size increments you can order. But then we needed this to be also overridable, because you need to be able to request a certain number of free samples. So you can also override the number in there and request it as a sample. Yeah, and you can see our minimum orders and pack sizes here. So we were able to do this all because, again, it is all just Umbraco. It's all just content. Let me jump back to the presentation. So some thoughts. The product it's new, it's evolving. I mean, it's not to say it's new, because it's been vendor for many years before it was Umbraco Commerce. It's already evolved a lot in the 12 months since it was launched. One example of that is delivery fees. We had some complex requirements around delivery pricing, and initially it was extremely basic when it was first launched. That's been extended a lot since then. They've just released some very much more complex dynamic delivery pricing. So if you need that feature, it's in now. Again, even before that though, you can extend it. You can do what you want. So before that was available, we still solved the problem anyway. Cloud CI/CD, we had some hiccups along the way. Still was worth it, given what it enabled for us. And the documentation's gotten a lot better on how you keep things in sync. Still can cause some headaches, but it is worth it if you need to follow your development processes. Now, the documentation is really, really great. So shout out to Matt Brailsford and the rest of the team there. It covers the basics of using Umbraco Commerce very well. But what we found is that because there's not a lot of community resource, particularly on Umbraco Commerce, there's not a lot of blog posts, not a lot of forum posts, the documentation doesn't really cover a lot of off-the-beaten-path examples. So we had to figure out a lot ourselves, ask support, etc., when we ran into particular kinds of challenges. So coverage of some more of those advanced use cases would have helped us a lot, I think, along the way. So some notes if you're going to be implementing an Umbraco Commerce project, some advice. Read the documentation. It's really, really good, as I said before. Yeah, so whoever's been responsible for updating this, probably Matt himself, I don't think he's in the room, but high five, you guys rock. Then the demo store, we actually use the demo project quite a lot as a reference point. It was very helpful to see a reference implementation to go back, have it to go back to, so we sort of had it running side by side. There's a link there in the presentation to that. If you have access to support, use it. They are very responsive. They're incredible. We had a few issues along the way. Various things, limitations in Umbraco itself, limitations in commerce, limitations in deploy, CI/CD. Probably used them a handful of times during the life of this project specifically, and they've been excellent. And if you don't have access to support, there's also an issue tracker for commerce on GitHub that I encourage you to use. They're also very responsive on there. So I don't think Gabby's here either, but high five, you guys rock too. So did we solve our client's problem? And the answer to that is, of course I'm going to say yes. It's a resounding yes. The client is currently loading all their content, and more specifically, the marketing team is currently loading all their content. So they're very happy. They've been doing a lot of user testing around the order management, and they are ecstatic at how much simpler it makes their lives. We found it, as a development team, very much a platform we would highly recommend and we will use again in the future. And it enabled our client to sell how they want to sell, and it enabled us to build how we want to build. So thank you all very much for coming. That was our experience working with Umbraco Commerce, and I hope you got some valuable insights from the talk.
We have some time for some questions, if any of you have any questions for Simon.
If you do have any questions, I've got some free stuff here to give you as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking into Umbraco Commerce for larger projects as well. How large was your overhead in this being your first project, and can you share how many hours roughly you spent on the project?
I didn't look at the numbers before this. I can say that it wasn't significantly over what we estimated initially in terms of effort. The project is going live a little bit later than we'd hoped, but that's mainly because the client's changing their minds about things and not loading content quite as in a hurry as we would like. But overall, I think it ended up being a 3 or 4 month project, the build phase and the UX and discovery phase, which was pretty much in range of what we were expecting. There were definitely some school fees we paid along the way, as is the case with any new platform, but being very familiar with Umbraco in the first place will get you 75% of the way there already. So if you are reticent and worried about trying a new platform, I'll tell you that working with Umbraco Commerce just feels like working with Umbraco. Cool. No, free stuff. Yeah. Have an awesome mouse pad or desk pad. Anything else? I've got some more stuff to give away. So I have another question.
Was there a mobile application part of your project? If there was, like, how are we going to handle it without a headless approach?
Luckily, in this case, it wasn't part of the application. If it had been headless, would have been almost a requirement, I would say. You can't really build a mobile app without headless delivery APIs unless you want to write them all yourself, which we've done before, but not something we're looking to do going forwards, really. Water bottle? You don't want it. Cool. I've got some more stuff. I mean,
First serve. Run up here, get your swag now.
or I can ask you guys some questions. We can do a little quiz, and then you can win things. So first one, does anyone know who created Umbraco Commerce? It was Vendor before, when it was Vendor. Yeah, well, who was it? It was Matt Brailsford.
Okay.
Was does Anders create it before him?
Yeah, so he bought e-commerce and turned it to Vendor, and then...
Okay, so Matt Brailsford created Vendor. Didn't go all the way back to T-commerce. I think you can have it, though. That's... It was like a completely...
How far back we're going.
I guess, yeah, I think that's everything we have, actually. Yeah. Oh, no, I got a hat in here, too. Cool, one more question. Yeah, here's a hat for. Last one. What did they call the headless delivery API when they launched it last year? Does anyone know what it's called? No one? I did actually even mention it earlier in the talk. No one was paying attention. It's called Storefront. Okay, nice, easy one. When did they launch Umbraco Commerce? It was at Codegarden last year. So, what month? June. There we go. Who answered that first? You? No. All good. You can have it. Was it not you? You didn't say it. There you go. You can just give it to someone from Umbraco if you don't want to keep it. Great. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time, and I hope you've enjoyed Codegarden 2024.